Good day, everybody. Today is the 7th of March, 2026, and I just finished about a 1-hour walking tour and open house of the Deschutes Estuary restoration project at Capitol Lake. We joined the project team there to learn more about the future restored Deschutes Estuary. The public had an opportunity to participate in the guided tour of the project area and to see updated visualizations and learn about the current proposed design for this transformational restoration project in the heart of downtown Olympia. It was a 1 to 2 mile tour starting at Heritage Park, traveling around the east side of the North Basin with a round trip time of approximately 1 hour. The tour representatives were very knowledgeable of the project, provided answers to all questions asked, and gave us a real good idea of what the project entailed, the scope, the duration, and the cost. So with that, let's go right into the video of the actual tour. We're at the Deschutes Estuary, Department of Ecology, State of Washington tour of the project that is being proposed to restructure the estuary.
Yeah, exactly. To help so if anybody, it's like I noticed like this has effects, but yeah. And I think it's like a restoration project. Because there's some skepticism, of course. We are going to do a little walking tour. We're going to head halfway around the lake to the Marathon Park Bridge and then back. Folks who prefer not to come back with us and want to go on touring around the rest of the lake, you're certainly welcome to. We're going to do our tour with a few stops along the way, so chances to stand and talk, especially since we're so large. Make sure that you all can hear us okay. Happy to answer questions as we go, but also we'll have the whole walk back to do Q&A. We're just going to do our talking at the stops out there, so please do interrupt us with questions, but also if you want to just chat with us on the way back with questions, that works too. We're up here. Oh, there's one there.
Okay. Give everybody a minute to just huddle in a little bit here, because I know I talk loud, but I don't know if I talk that loud. If you can't hear me, just like raise your hand or something like that, and we'll try and fix it. But just at this first stop, I want to point out the dam here. Now, when you think about the dam, there's a couple things to note. There is that 80-foot span that has that blue structure on it, and the yellow railing that you can see, which is the spillway portion of the dam. But functionally, that dam goes all the way from the Eastern Washington Butte here, all the way over to where that white car is parked over on the other side. That's, if you're thinking about it's a 500-foot long dam, and that was created back in between 1949 and 1951 by essentially they went and found a hill over here and they just started pushing dirt. And they just kept pushing dirt until they had created a road for us to drive on and to create most of what the dam is today. Now, important thing to note with the dam is it serves no economic function. It doesn't produce power or anything of that nature that gives it value. But the value it had at the time was they wanted it put in so that they could create a beautiful reflecting pool for the Capitol building. So that was 49 to 1951. By 1970, they were already starting to see potential problems that were developing in the lake. They were starting to see invasive species taking off. We were getting more than 37,000 yards of sediment that was being deposited in the lake every year. 37,000, that's a big number. Most people don't understand what that means. So 37,000 yards, a dump truck holds 10. So if you say 37,000 yards, we're talking about what? 3,700 dump truck loads of dirt every year. And now there's more than 700,000 yards of excess material in this lake. So that was 1970, they were starting to see issues. By 1980, there were problems with fecal coliform that shut down the lake from swimming. So it was a swimming destination for a whole 30 years before it was completely shut down. Yeah. So by 1980, that's where we were at. And as time went on, they were identifying that the dam itself is one of the main contributors to low dissolved oxygen in Butt Inlet. So what's happening is you get all this marine growth because of all the sediment that's being deposited, and the lake becomes shallow, and then all of a sudden you have a green lake. And then that material, when they open the dam, washes out into Butt Inlet and dies. And then that material, as it decomposes, decreases dissolved oxygen in the bay, which is important to the animals that use that bay. So it has, yeah.
Could you put a finer point on that though? Because you said it's one of the main contributors.
I'd be happy
I've seen
to.
statistics. Could you?
Capitol Lake is the largest contributor to the water quality problems in Butt Inlet.
What percentage of the problem is caused by Capitol Lake?
Joe, you know that.
Our notes.
Specific percentage. It's number one. Lot is number two. You know, like there's a couple of really big contributors, but the vast majority of it is this. Yeah,
That feels about right to me.
that's likely very close.
Yeah, a lot of stuff is sub 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you repeat when somebody out here said something?
He said that he had seen numbers that the lake's contribution to the TMDL issues in Butt Inlet, that the lake's percentage contribution is around 60%. We said we thought that felt probably about right. We don't have the number handy, but we can get back to anybody who wants it. I think one other thing I'd like to note about the significance of these waters is that these were waters of cultural and spiritual significance to the Squaxin Island tribe as well, and the dam cut off their access to that use, and that's another really important reason that we want to do this restoration. I also have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I have a few. I know we are a big group, so it's a little hard to see, but I'm happy to share these as we walk too if anybody wants to come up to the clipboard. And if you're short, you're certainly welcome to come up closer to the clipboard too. We have a few just photos. This one's kind of an aerial of the area now, but we also have some of the historic photos. You know, Scott was talking about when the dam was constructed, and so if anybody wants to come and look through these at some point about kind of how it used to be when it was an estuary, and then what the changes were with the construction of the dam, we can look through those at any point. We also have some of the water quality problems that Scott was talking about.
Can we find those online somewhere?
You can find them online on our website, which I'm happy to also give you a QR code to get to if you'd like.
Here's the QR code if you like QR codes. If anybody-
Is the dam a contributor? The dam is closed, or whatever. Is it contributing to the mortality of the salmon because the seals are having captive audience?
Yeah.
And will that change when the dam is gone?
There's a couple of things that are a significant impact to salmon as they come up. One of them is exactly what you're talking about. There's currently a 8-foot wide fish ladder on the side of the dam, which is what allows salmon to come into the lake. That is it's perfect. It's this spot that if the seals hang out, they know the salmon are going to come to them, right? And it's an 8-foot wide chute, and so it's a very it's a what we call a predation point. So it's where the predators basically come together to get their meal. So it's a pretty terrible situation. By taking out this dam and widening, and if we can recreate that 500-foot wide opening, we have taken away that predation point. And now they can come up and down without being specifically funneled into a spot where predators hang out.
But so can the seals.
Say again.
So can the seals.
It's just not the buffet line for them, right?
Yeah, instead of being in this tiny little spot, now you have a whole 500-foot opening to work with, where that provides protection in size, essentially.
I think somebody over here also just mentioned orcas. You know, Chinook salmon are orca's favorite food, and everything we do here to restore conditions to improve the lives of those Chinook and other salmonids is definitely beneficial for orcas as well. Yeah.
So you said 500 foot, so when the dam is taken out, will there be 500 foot
Channel opening, yes, that's the intent, is to create a 500 foot wide channel opening.
So that will require a new bridge then? And
Correct.
Part of the park then being taken, removed then?
The park will have some minor impacts for construction, but we're not intending to significantly take out the park with this project.
There will be some changes to Heritage Park. So one of the parts of the design is when we have an estuary here, we're going to have a sloping habitat berm that comes up to the park. So some of your interaction with the water here will change, but part of that change will be there will actually be a point where you can access the water where you can't right now. So some of the shoreline of the park will certainly look different, but that's, you know, just kind of, you don't want to just take it out and have the seawall drop.
But there will be a wider opening then for the river to go.
Wider
out.
opening for the river to go through.
Yeah.
So with that wider opening, there's going to be more sediment carried down into the bay. My understanding is that there would be dredging every 5 years with this plan. Is that still true?
So the construction we're doing to restore the historic Deschutes River channels, that material that we dredge, we're going to beneficially reuse on the site to create the habitat that we're trying to make. So this area that we're going to restore, the 2 miles here, we're not going to be maintenance dredging this area.
No, but out in the bay.
And then all of the project partners, so including the port, the cities, the county, lot, the state, the tribe, all have an agreement about how sediment will be managed in the marinas and West Bay.
And
is
to
that
your
the
question, there's
I
different.
read in the original estuary plan, it was that every 5 year dredging of sedimentation out in the bay. My question is that still true, or have you revised that plan?
So to that, we have analyzed through numerical modeling what the deposition is going to look like out in the bay. And as we are going through that process, we are definitely fine-tuning. There are some areas where it's every 5 years is the anticipated timeline. Some areas it's more like 10 years. But it depends on what the deposition ends up looking like. The last couple, yeah.
We have one more question here.
Yeah.
When you talk about recreation and accessing the water, is that pointed yet? Like, is there a spot that you guys have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I have a drawing here that we can look at too, and then on those.
Repeat the question, please.
So
Yes.
the question is where is access to the water going to exist in the future design? And we've got a couple of good. So one of them is basically where we're standing. So this is going to be one of the access points. We'll be able to get a little closer to the water than you do today in the future. The other one is going to be basically straight across over at Marathon Park. Those are the two locations where we anticipate having access. This might be a little more stately access. This is the Heritage Park. This is an extension of the Capitol campus. That one's going to be less stately. It's going to be a part of Marathon Park. It's going to be easy access, essentially, for both.
Yes.
Yes.
And she asked if that side would be the better access for
Kayaks.
handheld boats like kayaks and things. Yes.
When you repeat the question.
Happy to. We are a huge group. Please let us know if you can't hear. And this is way too small to see, but when we get back, there's a larger board of this, and it shows some of those access points too, if you want to look in more detail.
And then the last key point before we move on is the reason none of us can go in there right now is because of those 12 invasive species that I talked about, and specifically the New Zealand mud snail. And that's what shut down the lake since 2009. And as we talk about how to deal with these invasive species, one of the best things we can do is introduce a whole bunch of salt water. And so that takes, of the 12 invasive species we're talking about, 10 of them cannot survive in salt water at all, and 2 have the potential to develop tolerance depending on time. However, of those 2, one of them actually is the New Zealand mud snail. That dam opens up frequently, and snail are being sent out into the bay, and there are no clear colonies of New Zealand mud snail in the bay. So our best assumption at the moment is that saltwater will bring down their population to appreciably enough. So,
Yes.
yes.
So this will become an estuary.
Well, this would be a brackish condition, especially once you pass the rail bridge. It's going to be more brackish than straight saltwater. But we're showing that the saltwater makes it about all the way up to I-5, approximately.
But in a small amount. The question was, how far up will saltwater go?
Okay, shall we move to the next spot? So,
Oh, so sorry. That's all right.
just want to take this moment to talk a little bit about the estuary and what it's going to be in the future. One great point to just point out, as we were talking about previously, we're going to be bringing up this nice soft shallow slope to create this habitat that's really beneficial to salmon. And when you think about the benefit, it's not just the part where they're in their water, it's also all the plant life that's along that edge. And so we want to make sure we're fully establishing a new habitat area that is beneficial for all the wildlife that use this area. When we talk about this though, this will now become a tidally influenced zone. So if you think about the tides, they come up and you've got about a 15-foot swing in elevation of water surface. So it's going to come up to elevation 12 or so, and at really low tides in the middle of summer, it might make it all the way down to -2 or -3. You know, so when you think about how it changes, you got about a 15-foot swing in water surface elevation. So it'll slowly slope out here. We'll have plantings for a lot of that area, then eventually it becomes mud flat as you get close to a channel, and then we'll have a nice channel in the middle. That channel, the first activity we're going to do is we're going to dredge that 700,000 yards of material that we were talking about, which back to 70,000 dump truck loads. And we're going to then move that material to the edges to create these nice soft slopes that we're talking about. So we're not going to haul it all off site. We're going to reuse it all here for beneficial reuse.
Just to real quick clarify, that's not the number of dump trucks that are going to be running because we're beneficially reusing it on site. Just so everybody's clear, instead of doing that number of dump trucks, we're using it right here. It is not. The question was, is that dirty soil?
No, so is the soil in the lake dirty? No, it is not. We have sampled it and confirmed that it is actually clean. It just happens to have some invasive species in it. So we can use it and we can beneficially reuse it without that potential problem.
So the question was, is it going to have a berm or a dike, or will it be a smooth slope going down?
This is a great spot to look at it. So if you think about right here where we're standing is approximately elevation 14. If you look behind us, you can see the hill behind us. You can see that gets up probably maybe 4-ish feet higher, so that might be elevation 18 or 19. So there will be our high point somewhere here, which will be like 17. So it's going to be somewhere about this high that we're going to come up to, and then we'll be feathering that out to match the park, essentially. And that. Oh.
So all of this is going to be taken out to create the slope that you're looking at.
Correct. This trail will still exist, but it'll have to be recreated. So, and that's true of the entire arc of statehood will be affected by this project.
Is that what it's called? Arc of Statehood?
It is called the Arc of Statehood. So,
there's a lot of symbolism in the Arc of Statehood that you might notice as we go along. Let me know if you have questions.
Right. So you'll see some plaques every once in a while. Even the tree types here were very intentional. And so there's a lot of things like that have been very intentional in this arc here.
Yeah, so we are considering the plaques in our design. We know they're very important to a lot of folks. So we're working with DES, who manages this park, to make sure that we very carefully preserve them, remove them when we're doing the construction, so that they can be reinstalled in the future.
Yeah, and I think the only other thing I would say about this is, in general, for us to create this, we're not just doing this in a vacuum. There are great example sites nearby that we can go to better understand how the plants are going to survive and what plants are going to survive and how that's going to look. And we're doing all this in close proximity with Department of Fish and Wildlife, as well as the Squaxin Island Tribe, to make sure that we're doing this in a way that is best suited for the location and best suited to survive and do well. So the question is will what we're doing here have a benefit to Bud Bay? One of the comments specifically is that you can't eat the shellfish in Bud Bay at the moment. There's two parts to your question, I would say. Yes, what we're doing is a benefit, an overall benefit to the to Bud Bay. Although sediment will be coming down, now it'll be clean sediment that's coming down, and that's an overall benefit. However, one thing to note is there's also a cleanup going on in Bud Bay that's under design that will be happening about the same time as this project. It's not this project, but that project will also be happening, and that's being led by the port to get that area clean so that someday you can eat the shellfish again. Primary contaminant points are from the historic work that used to happen out on this peninsula out here on East and West Bay, which is why it's generally focused there.
We got another question over here. So the question was, how many years, how long will it take for the project? So right now we are hoping that all the funding comes through as we intend it to, and if it does, then we're currently at what we call a 60% level of design. We're planning to get to 100% finished design in 2027, as well as get our permits done in 2027. If all that goes well, we can start construction at the earliest in 2027, and then we're looking at about a 5 to 6 year construction timeline. So for all of the different elements that we're talking about today, the bridge, the restoration, everything, we're looking at probably 32 or 33 when everything is done.
Correct.
Will this end up being like mud flats?
There will be some mud flat areas, yes.
It'll be a little bit of a lot of those things. So if you think about, the new surface being here, right? And then we're going to start going down. Well, the water surface is not going to be quite as high as it is here today. So you'd have plants that are continuing out quite a ways, first 100 so feet here. And then it would slowly give way to tidal mud flats, where every day the water's coming up to that elevation and then it's draining down. So depending on the time of day, you might see mud or you might see water. It's going to be a lot more similar to, it's not going to be the same as Nisqually, but it's going to have some of that feel to it, where you can show up there and it's just, it doesn't matter what time of day you show up there, it's beautiful, but it's a different kind of beautiful depending on the time of day.
That's a good one.
But to add one thing, we have heard some feedback from folks who are interested in having more planted riparian zones, especially here where you're walking and things, and so the design's responsive to that, where we have riparian plantings really targeted for those near areas, and then the mud flats a little further out.
Yeah.
So the question was, will the mud flats be areas that oysters would like to bed in? Unfortunately, your tour does not have one of the biologists leading it. Neither
Right.
Scott or I is a biologist, so we're not the best people to answer this.
I would assume by just like geometry that would be true, but I honestly don't know that for sure.
However, we do have some of the project biologists back at the tent, and so we might walk back with you and ask that question of them when we get back there. Sorry, you got an engineer and a planner.
The other one that I think I would mention on a similar vein is flooding. So one of the things that you guys, those of you who've been around, you saw 2023 when this area flooded, and there's been some flooding events that have occurred when you have this combination of high river flow and high tide or king tide coming in about the same time. Yeah, like where we are standing was underwater, and that water made it to some of the roads, even in this general vicinity. So one thing that the reason the floods are so bad here when you have those major events is because you can only fit so much water through an 80-foot wide dam opening. And so what ends up happening is you get a higher stack of water back behind here. When the dam is gone, you now have the theoretical infinite storage of Puget Sound as it widens out in there. So just by taking out the dam, we can lower the maximum flood elevation by a foot. which is quite a bit in this area when we start talking about the difference of the elevation here versus right there is 4 feet, right? So when we start talking about what we can do to improve flooding, getting rid of that dam is one of the best things we can possibly do. No, so the question was, will that lower the elevation in Butt Inlet? The answer is no. Once you hit the Puget Sound is just so expansive that it's really hard to affect the elevation of the Puget Sound. And so that Butt Inlet would not be significantly impacted by opening this up. Yeah.
How far down in the mud out here, especially near the river, would there be sand and gravel?
So the question was, how far out into the area here would there be sand and gravel?
How deep?
How deep would
yes.
there be sand and gravel?
Well, so it's highly varied out. So the answer is, just even at that lake drawdown, there are certain areas where you could walk very confidently and you're walking on gravelly material. Like I would say, everything near Percival Cove is super gravelly, for instance. It's super confident, it's really easy to walk on. Out here where you've got this mostly deposited sediment, it's super soft. And so when we move it, we're going to be reestablishing. I think that the channel that's left is going to actually be it's going to be a competent surface. And then as we amend the soils that we're using on the sides, the goal would be to create competent surfaces there as well. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
That's an engineer's answer.
If you took a drill rig out there, how far down?
Something to walk on?
You could walk on it without.
Yeah, without sinking. Yeah. Great spot to just look at traffic movement here, because you can see the 4th Avenue Bridge in the background going up the hill. You can see 5th Avenue coming around to Deschutes Parkway here. So one of the things to just note is some of those turn movements aren't that great right now. I don't know how you guys feel about coming down from the roundabout down to 5th Avenue. So, and even for those that walk across the dam or bike across that dam, and then there's also traffic there, I'm guessing no one loves the current configuration of that. So this is a great opportunity to help improve that. So the couple of the big things that we're going to do with this project is, before we touch that dam, we're going to put in a new bridge, and that new bridge is going to be on this side of that existing dam. So you will come off 5th, and there'll be a gentle curve that will put you out waterward of where the existing dam is, and then that will take you across it. About where that bus is right now will be another roundabout that will then take you either up the hill to 4th Avenue or continue along Deschutes Parkway, which is going to significantly improve traffic movements. Now you can come down that hill and shoot off straight for Deschutes and towards the freeway, rather than trying to figure out how to do an illegal UE, which is what I'm guessing some of you do.
I'm seeing so much joy here. We love this.
So part of why we're going to do that, well, there's a bunch of reasons to that, but one of the benefits with the way that we're going to do this work is now we get to use the dam as a construction mechanism. We can now control the lake level during construction to bring it down to work on things when we need less water. We can bring it up to bring in larger equipment to do the dredging, for instance. And we can actually use the dam to help us do the construction more efficiently and more cost effectively. So the dam itself will be the last element of work that's done on this project. We'll have spent years setting everything up, getting it all ready for the event, and then the curtain opens, and that's the dam coming out, essentially. And so that's kind of the process that we're going to go through here. And so so I talked about traffic, but then the other part is like pedestrian movements. So this arc, this trail that goes around, we'll call it the North Loop, is really important, and it will continue to function as it does today. So some of the things that we're doing to make sure that it can is that when we affect this area, because this is another area where the finished surface is somewhere here, and so we're going to be bringing it up a little bit. We'll be restoring this trail, and that trail will continue, and that trail will actually go on adjacent to the road. So there'll be two paths, essentially. There'll be the road path, and then there'll be the pedestrian path. It's going to have that sufficient width that you're looking for to be safe and fully separated from the road, to make this loop that is a little bit better to deal with today when you think of how you manage the dam, essentially. Oh, so the question was, are there functional railroad tracks under the bridge? And the answer is, currently, so you do see the rail spur that comes down this way. I'm gonna guess somewhere just shy of that pinkish looking building there is about where the functional end of that rail track is. There's a fairly sizable berm that basically prevents rail cars from going too far right now, because once you get past there, that trail is no longer functioning. And so for our project, we will be removing those rails and pulling those piles and getting that creosote out of the ground.
If anyone wants to get closer and see, we have some diagrams about how there will be space for pedestrians, bikes, and cars on the bridge in separate zones. We also have kind of a artist's rendering of what the bridge might look like. We're, obviously at the 60% design, continuing to refine. But I know there's a lot of interest in being able to stand on that bridge as you walk and look back at the Capitol right here. And so we have some the pedestrian side out there. It's gonna be just a little bit closer, but you'll still have that really lovely view.
So there's a couple things with that. Like if you think about when you go up 4th Avenue, that's not the best bridge to walk up, because you got this hill climb hike that you're going up for the whole way. So our goal is to make sure we're providing something that is more enjoyable to bring a small family on, right? So when you look at the image of the bridge section, you'll notice that the driving surface is here, and then what we're showing is a buffer that includes some green space, and then a lower path for families to more easily traverse. And so it's not going to be as severe of a hike to get up and over this bridge where pedestrians are concerned. The other one that you were just talking about was, and then the viewpoints. So there's absolutely those great views of the Capitol, but the other thing that people currently flock to this area for is to watch the salmon. And so we are focusing a pause point where the primary channel is, so that if people are coming to once again view the salmon, they will have that moment. And even our pause point is in some ways shaped at the moment to better focus everybody to the two key views that we're talking about here. So for the whole project, every element of the project, we're bringing it together out as one big unit. And there's some really great benefits with doing it as one big package. You get to make sure that the elements of construction associated with the bridge are considered when you do your design for your estuary, and vice versa. They can work together and be one unit. So we have just finished what we're calling 60% design, which means that we've established like plan view, like looking from 50 feet up, you look down, we've got all the concepts in place. And we've done some detailing of the major elements that have significant cost implications, right? Like how this outfall is going to work, or things like that have big costs. Like there's big pressure mains out here, so we have to think about how our project affects that and things like. So we've thought about those ones, but then now, so that got us to 60%. Now we need to get it to 90 and final. So 90 is when we start looking at those more minute details that a contractor would care about for how he's going to actually do the work. But to be at 60% is a great spot to be, because now we've gotten everything together that's enough for like permitting agencies to fully understand the project, or for us even as well to understand the project enough. And now it's really just a matter of taking it from 60, where we understand all the elements of the project and we understand the costs, and get it to that point where it's detailed enough that a contractor can say, oh, this is the tool I need, this is the bolt I have to buy, things like that we don't worry about in the early phases of design. So, and like Lynn was saying, the goal is to have that done by next spring.
What is your cost estimate?
The
So-
question was, what is our cost estimate?
So we're only at 60%, so things are still moving and changing. To this point, as of 60%, we're looking at about 350 mil is approximately where it's at.
Just to clarify, we're looking at 350 million right now as the construction cost. There are a few other costs like the administrative costs for the agencies that are working on this. We are working very closely to get guidance from our legislatures. We are also continuing to refine those costs as we go. So between the conceptual and 30% design to now, where we're at that 60% level of design, we're continuing to refine the design and look for cost savings opportunities as well. Between those stages, we do something called value engineering, where we really work with the contractor and the designers, and we look at ways that we can refine and save costs. So between in the last round of value engineering, we saved about 100 million in construction costs, and we're doing some more value engineering coming up soon, where we're going to look for other opportunities.
Yeah.
Does that include the inflationary cost between now and when the project?
Yeah, so the question is, do we take inflation into account? And yes, in our cost estimates, we do look at the projected timelines at which we will need to be doing each part of that and what inflation might influence. The question was if there's any interaction or relationship with the West Bay, do they call it West Bay Park? Or
Yards.
West Bay
West Bay
Yards?
Yards.
West Bay Yards,
Yards.
the condominium development.
And I think the short answer is there's not a ton of impact coming. Like, I don't think that has swift impact on what we have going on. There's that project. There's also a West Bay Trail project that the city is working on that would tie into our project.
Any information about the West Bay Trail? I mean, it's going to be finished in my lifetime.
Unfortunately, we are not the people working. The question was if there's any information about the West Bay Trail and when it might be done. We're unfortunately not the folks working on that, but we are planning for the fact that it may occur in our plans. So we're making sure that there's an opportunity for them to tie in under the bridge.
Okay.
So we provide connectivity and we set it up for success. But that's a city-run project with different consultants, and they're working on that separate from us.
Is this a unique project that other people have their eyes on, or are there other estuaries?
Is this project unique? That's a great question. As far as scope, this is the largest urban estuary in the United States that I'm aware of. So there are estuary projects, and there are urban restoration projects, but to bring this size of an estuary project into an urban center like this is pretty unique. And so it does require unique considerations that you wouldn't necessarily have to worry about if I was doing this on the middle of the Olympic Peninsula or something like that. So there are some things that we deal with because of that. So it does make it a bit unique, but I would say that the fish passage process that has been going on in the state of Washington for the last 10-15 years is very close akin to what we're talking about here. So it's a nice extension of that, but it's at a scale that's just so much bigger than anything else we've talked about. So like if you think about the size of this, the lake itself is nearly 260 acres. And so when we talk about our project area being a 260 acre project area, I have a different habitat project that I did not that long ago that it won a bunch of awards. It's 3 acres.
Okay, we're walking the trail around Capitol Lake to the next point of discussion.
Still see
I think we're all here. So this is a great spot to just take in the view. So if you look that way and you look that way, everything you can see is within the project footprint. Basically all the way down past I-5 down on that end, and all the way to the dam, and actually all the way past the dam to the 4th Avenue Bridge on this end, essentially.
So 2 miles total, for those who don't think in acres. I know we've been saying acres a lot. 2 miles. Yet is the bridge we're on now, Marathon Park Bridge. So this bridge carries utilities underneath it. You can't see them because we're on top, but there's utilities that run on this bridge. So replacing this bridge is also part of the project. It'll still be a utility and pedestrian bridge. It just needs to be upgraded so that it can withstand its new saltwater environment. So we haven't talked about that yet, but I don't think you'll see a big change. We're still going to have the loop trail all the way around.
How old is this bridge?
Ooh, do you know how old this bridge is?
Does anyone know?
It's not terribly old, but I think that it was partially built on existing infrastructure, is my guess, because if you go down there, the piles are older than the structure. And it's just not, I like to call this a utility bridge that people happen to walk on. That's more what this is. Like if you look under here, we got 3 large diameter force mains providing sewer and water and reclaimed water, all are running underneath here that need to be protected, and those are low enough because of where we're standing that they're within likely flood events, and so we need to deal with that, and so that's part of why we're impacting this bridge a little bit. But functionally it won't be a noticeable change to people using it. You'll just have a newer bridge that's replacing this bridge in a way that's going to make sure that it can handle the tidal influence that's going on here, because right now it's okay in a static environment. It's certainly not okay in a seismic environment at the moment, and so those things need to just be accounted for in this project.
What does that building over there do?
Well, it used to be the steam plant to provide heat. So they asked, what was this building?
That is still the steam plant.
Yeah.
And it still provides steam heat to the Capitol.
There we go. I apologize. There is a long-term plan to relocate that functionality. So it is not. The current assumption is that that building will outlast our project, but not by much.
We also got a question about if any work's planned for the railroad bridge. We are not planning any work for the railroad bridge, but our project doesn't preclude changes to the railroad bridge in the future. So if someone else in the future were to decide it was time to take that out or change it in any way, our project is able to accommodate that, but we're not doing any work on the railroad bridge.
Side interesting note on that rail bridge is that predates the dam. And you can actually see it. It's kind of cool. If you look at the ends of the bridge, you can see that like wheel sitting in that channel. This bridge actually used to be able to articulate up to allow for vessels to go up and down to the brewery upstream. That's how long this bridge has been here. So the question is, what will the middle basin look like when this is over? And the answer is, the plan in the North Basin is very similar to the plan in the Middle Basin. We're gonna cut that river channel. The river actually kind of hugs this left edge here. So we will be reestablishing that river channel, using that material to build soft slopes that are coming down on each side. And what you see out here will be very similar, where you have riparian giving way to high marsh, giving way to low marsh, giving way to mud flat, and then to the river channel. So it'll have a lot of the same concepts and looks about it.
A question about coordination with the port dredging.
Oh yeah.
Just so everybody can hear it, yes, we are coordinating with the Port of Olympia. They are working on their cleanup plan for both East Bay and West Bay, their sediment cleanup plan. So yes, we are coordinating with them. We are very hopeful that West Bay cleanup will be done before we need to remove the bridge, so that then just any clean sediment that the Deschutes River sends down will just be on top of an already cleaned up surface, and everything should work beautifully. So yes, we are continuing to coordinate with them, and we will be continuing to coordinate with them. They are definitely one of our design partners, and we talk all the time. So the question was, although we know that Squaxin Island Tribe is a very involved design partner, what happens when we start construction if we were to discover something that's culturally significant or important to them? So Squaxin Island Tribe is very, very involved, key design partner throughout the entire process. They will continue to be as well throughout the entire process. We're also working with them on all of those what if type questions. Usually during construction, we have what's called an inadvertent discovery plan, which lays out all the steps that we take were something to be discovered. However, one of the good things about what we're doing is that we know all that sediment has been transported downstream and deposited here, right? So if you think about older soils are on the bottom, and the likely areas where there would be those culturally significant items are pretty far down, covered by all the material that we want to move. So we're not going far enough down that we think that there's any substantial risk of that. The material that we're trying to move is all the stuff that's been transported down and deposited. But we will absolutely be continuing to work with the tribe, and we'll have plans for all of those what ifs.
Great answer. We should probably start making our way back. If people have questions, feel free, and we can continue to answer them as we walk.